Hello, my name's Haley, and welcome to today's video. It's all about gene key number 2, which is called Returning to the One. This 3-part gene key is the Shadow of Dislocation, the Gift of Orientation, and the City of Unity. Today we're going to be focusing purely on the shadow of this second gene key, Dislocation, and I'm going to try to make the shadow into just this one video, but we'll see. There's a lot to discuss in here. And so before I even started reading this, I thought about what the word dislocation means to me. And naturally I remembered when I broke my clavicle. Before I knew it was a broken clavicle, I thought it was a dislocated shoulder. And so if you're thinking about dislocation from that frame, dislocation means something that's come apart. It's supposed to be together in unity, right? In this city of unity, but it's come apart, and it's come apart in a really awkward kind of way, and there's pain or discomfort being caused by its disunity, by its dislocation. But it's meant to be together. This is kind of where just what the word means to me, dislocation. And this can be applied to more than just a physical injury. Dislocation, it's supposed to be together, but it's not, and because it's not, it feels awkward and weird, could speak to your relationship with your higher self. You know, you could see this through a more esoteric lens as well and apply it to really any situation or relationship within your life. So I thought that was interesting to ponder. As you see it, so it changes. He starts off this chapter with basically talking about how this second gene key is archetypally feminine, whereas the first gene key is archetypally masculine. And he mentions that the first and second gene keys are what they call programming partners. I'm not going to speak too much about what a programming partner is, so if you're curious about that, you can Google gene keys programming partners and get a download through AI or another video or resource. He mentions that this second gene key is about the nature of humanity and the reason for existence. Basically summing it up that there is a purpose to everything in existence. There's a reason for everything. And I like what he says here. At no point in evolution has anything ever occurred that was not a part of a huge interconnected plan. Okay, so I read that, and I know it's true because I can tell it's true because my heart kind of smiles when I read it, and it brings relief. So yeah, just reading simple truths is nice sometimes. At no point in evolution has anything ever occurred that was not a part of a huge interconnected plan. Whew, what a relief. That means I was supposed to fall off the moped. Why? Because it happened. And according to Richard Rudd, and the way my heart smiles at this quote, everything is a part of this huge interconnected plan. Whether you believe it, deny it, wish for it, or embody it, the truth does not change. This comes later on in the paragraph. So the truth that he states is about how everything is this huge interconnected plan. And then he goes on to drill home that whether you believe this is the truth or not, whether you want to deny it and say, oh no, that's not true, or you want to wish for it to be something else, or you don't want to embody the truth, it's still the truth. The truth is always true, and the truth needs no defense. And that also brings relief to me. The truth needs no defense means I don't have to prove that this is true because it's true. It just is. And so there doesn't need to be a logical argument or reasoning that the human mind can understand for it to be true. It's still true regardless of whether or not Richard Rudd can convince you, I can convince you, you can convince you. And that's kind of nice to me. Makes me feel better. I don't know why. Truth brings relief, I think is what I'm trying to say here. Truth brings me relief. Okay, so that's kind of his intro paragraph into this entire gene key. Then he specifically gets into dislocation, which is this gene key shadow, which is what we will be focusing on today. The shadow of dislocation. And he talks about how this implies both a sense of being lost in time and space and of dismemberment. I had to Google that word, dismemberment. And when you Google the word dismemberment, the very kind of gory image comes up. It says taking each limb off one by one. And then it gives an example of that happening to a human. For some reason, Google brought this example up. It also just means the act of cutting or separation. So you could think of dismemberment as being cut off from your higher self, from your intuition, which would, of course, inevitably make you feel lost. So this shadow of dislocation is being lost, not knowing what to do in the world because you've been cut off from your higher guidance, from God, from source, from love, whatever you want to call that thing inside of you and all around you. And when you feel cut off from God, you feel lonely. You feel off, you feel afraid, dejected. And he says all these things. However, though, when you feel lonely, you feel cut off, you feel afraid or dejected, you have never actually lost your way. It just feels that way. Okay, I read that, and for some reason I also just, my heart smiles, and I know that that's true. Even though I feel like I've lost my way, I actually haven't lost my way. Okay, kind of relieved in a weird way. And again, that doesn't take away this feeling of offness, but it does kind of soothe. It's kind of like when a baby gets hurt and then it's like, cries for its mom comes to hug it. Yes, the boo-boo still hurts, but now at least mom's hugging me. That's kind of what this quote felt like to me when I read it. This is kind of what truth feels like. Okay, the ouchie's still there, but at least I'm being embraced and someone cares, and I know it's gonna get better. So, however, when you feel lonely, cut off, afraid, dejected, you have never actually lost your way. It just feels that way. So what does this really mean? It just feels this way, but it's not actually this way. Well, this kind of reminds me of The Course in Miracles, which is a book I read like mid-2024. Great book. It's massive. It also looks like the Bible. It's dark blue. And there's a big section in the Course in Miracles that talks about misperceiving reality. And this section reminds me of that. You haven't actually lost your way, it just feels like that. It feels like that because you're misperceiving reality. You're not seeing things as they actually are. Your ego has a preference, which is therefore tainting your reality, putting veils of illusion to make you feel bad, even though you should not be really feeling bad with whatever you're experiencing. I'm going to give you an example in a second because I realize this is very esoteric and just lots of words and perhaps confusing you, because I'm even confusing myself as I speak right now. So I'll provide an example in a minute, right after I read this. He says, there's not a single moment in your life that is not perfectly in harmony with all of creation. Neither is there the slightest possibility that you can make a wrong decision or take a wrong turn in life. Once again, my heart smiles, relief. It's true. I just know it's true when I read that. I just know. And I have an inkling you who watching this kind of knows too. Because we all have little truth detectors in us. Okay. Biology determines your perception. So it's interesting because that quote earlier prompted me to think of Course in Miracles, just a misperception of reality, and then he uses the word perception here. Your biology determines your perception. What does that mean? Your biology determines your perception. Okay, so that means if I'm in biological harmony, if I'm in homeostasis, if I'm in balance, if I'm in health, then I have a good perception. I can perceive reality as it actually is. This also means the inverse, and here comes story time. If my biology is ill, if my biology is sick, if my biology is misaligned and has chemicals and other mean guys floating around in it, from alcohol, drugs, scrolling on social media too much, not taking care of the body, not sleeping, not walking, not exercising, not drinking enough water. I could go on. If the biology is tainted in any way, it will also therefore taint your perception. And so this reminded me of when I was a model, right? When I was a model, I was extremely ill, mentally and physically. Mentally, I had a lot of anxiety because I never thought I was good enough. I never thought I was skinny enough. I never thought I was beautiful enough. I never thought my hair looked good enough. I always thought I was too tan. Whatever programming I was being told and choosing to accept and allow into my life at the time. All of which I just kind of mentioned. And so my ill mind, body follows suit of the mind, led to an ill body. I lost my menstrual cycle. I had PCOS. I was real frail, and I had half the amount of hair because my hair would fall out from stress. And I mean, there's loads of things more. I'll leave it at that. But basically, okay, ill mind, ill body. Guess what that creates? Ill perception, a misperception of reality. And so here's the example I'm going to give to you guys. Going back to that quote earlier. You would never actually lost your way. It just feels that way. So when I had a misperception of reality, I had never actually lost my way. It just felt that way because the way I was perceiving reality was telling me that being anorexic was correct. That being super thin and super frail was correct. That being exactly how my agents wanted me to be, not to actually present myself as I am, was correct. Which none of this is true, right? And so this is what creates all those kind of negative feelings like, oh, I've lost my way, or I feel stressed or anxious or sick. I'm misperceiving reality, and I keep living my life in accord with that misperception. So, of course, it feels like I've lost my way. But I haven't actually lost my way, in the sense that health is still an option. It's still on the table. I can still choose at some point to correct all of this ill thinking and the way I'm treating my body, which obviously now I've come into alignment with that, and look, here I am. So I never actually lost the chance to correct the way I was perceiving reality and therefore treating my mind and body. This is kind of a whole jumble of words. I'm hoping this is making sense. Let's see. All of this to say, biology determines your perception. The healthier your mind, the healthier your body. The healthier your perception. The more you perceive what's actually true. And remember, what's actually true provides relief and makes your heart smile. Relief is relaxation. It's easy. It's no effort. Thank God. That's what it is. And then the inverse of that is ill perception, ill body, ill mind, which is, I have to do all these things, and I'm stressed because what if I can't be that size or be that way? It's always constantly analyzing and controlling, and it's not relaxed. If anything, it's all tense and always thinking about what it can do to maintain this misperception. And this is an interesting thing, is in order to keep misperceiving reality, it requires a lot of maintenance. You have to keep choosing to misperceive reality, which is a very subconscious choice at times. Nonetheless, though, it is still a choice. For example, I was choosing to continually, each and every day, when I was sick, to listen to my agents, to not eat, to think that being anorexic was beautiful. All of these things. So it's always a choice. You get to choose if you would like to see reality or not. You get to choose if you would like to live in alignment with who you are or not. You get to choose to feel the relief and see the truth or not. It's a choice. And this is a big graduation day, the day a person realizes and accepts that. Because it takes a lot of, now I'm kind of going on a rabbit hole, I'll be done with this soon, but it takes a lot of courage and also responsibility. Okay, so yes, these were recommendations from agents, modeling industry, whatever, but ultimately I chose to adopt these things and make them mine. I chose to misperceive reality. So something to keep in mind Where are you choosing to misperceive reality? Where are you choosing stress? Where are you choosing to control something when in reality, life wants you to be relieved and relaxed and effortless and easy? Where are you choosing to misperceive the truth? Okay, so then carrying on. Your biology determines your perception. We just went over that. Your perception, the way you view things as they actually are, or lack thereof, is the measuring stick for your evolution. Your evolutionary frequency, is the measuring stick for your evolutionary frequency. And then he goes on to define evolutionary frequency as the current state of advancement of your awareness. So essentially, the more I perceive reality as it actually is, and I know I'm perceiving reality if I feel relieved, if I feel relaxed, if I feel effortless, if I'm sighing deep and breathing deep and kind of fluffy and joyous, that's how I know I'm perceiving the truth. The more I perceive the truth, reality as it actually is, the faster I evolve. I'm going to give you guys another example here. We've all been in one like this, I'm sure, where you're in a relation with someone and you're projecting a version onto them that you wish they were. Oh, well, they could be this, they could be that, and you don't even realize you're doing it. And so you actually start to think they are the future husband, or they are so talented at X, Y, and Z, or they are treating you great. But in reality, have they done any of that? This is an interesting thing, is our mind is this great tool that has the ability to project images upon people, places, and things. So it's a constant check-in. Am I actually perceiving this? Or am I fantasizing this, opening my eyes and projecting it onto a scenario, person, or peoples? That one might take a little bit more contemplation. Maybe a proper journal session for that. Something to consider though. Finding relief with your eyes open here, here, not finding fake relief within the fantasy of your mind, opening your eyes and playing an IMAX movie over what's actually in front of you, if that makes sense. Constantly checking into the actual present moment, not the fantasy of what you want the present moment to be. Two different things. It's tricky stuff, this one. This is a great gene key. It's very rabbit hole-y. Also, this is definitely going to be a 2-part series for this shadow because I'm only about halfway through this shadow. And I'm trying to make these videos around 30 minutes. So, yes, carrying on. Okay, so then he talks about how as an evolution, as a whole, we're preparing for another great leap. You know, we went from kind of animalistic centers into great thinkers, and now we're going from great thinkers into sedimenting into the solar plexus, stabilizing into the solar plexus, and we're going to go into the awareness of unity and oneness for all beings. That's what Richard Rudd says we're evolving into as a species. Whereas right now we're a little bit more egotistical, what's me and mine versus you and yours. But we're going into a perception, into an evolution of unity and oneness for all beings. So essentially love. We're evolving into more love. Greater levels of unconditional love as a whole. Okay, and then he says a lot of poetic-y stuff about paradoxes and how we've actually all been one. This is an illusion, whatever. I'm not going to go down that whole rabbit hole right now because it's going to take a while. So once again, if you're really interested in understanding the entirety of this Shadow of Dislocation of the second gene key, I recommend reading the book or listening to the podcast that he has on Spotify. Okay, I'm going to skip right here. He says, we tend to think that there is something wrong with the direction that we've taken. So, whether that's in the form of regret or grief or, oh, I wish I could have, or, oh, I should have. You know, the ego's constantly trying to analyze the past and project into the future. We always think there's something wrong with the direction we've already taken. We always wish we could undo something that already happened, whatever it is. But really, all is on time and all is on track. And again, when I say those words, just notice what your heart does. Mine personally smiles and I feel relief. Oh, really? We're actually all on time? I'm actually on track? Well, thank God, because here I was thinking I'd messed up. The truth provides relief. He says the mind is our great blind spot because it prevents us from inhabiting older instinctive awareness. What he's saying is now we can use our prefrontal cortex, the 5% of our mind, to kind of override our instincts. For instance, when I was a model, even though my biology, my instinctual self is telling me I'm hungry, I'm overriding it because my ego has a preference to be like this. And I'm saying, no, I'm not hungry actually. No, I'm good. And I keep rejecting the food. You keep doing that enough times, the instinct gets a little quieter. So the mind is our great blind spot in the sense that sometimes we can actually hush our biology, our instinct, when we have an egotistic desire that overrides our primal needs. So it's a little dangerous sometimes, is what he's saying. The fear that we are going in a bad direction comes from this second shadow, he says. It's because we now see ourselves as separate from nature that we feel this great collective fear. Okay, so if we remembered that we were one with nature, we're still one with nature, we've always been one with nature, this fear that we're going in a bad direction would actually dissolve immediately. We're not separate from nature. This is a misperception of reality. Back to the beginning of the video. That belief is not true. We're not separate from nature. Just because we've evolved, now we're great thinkers and we have houses and, we don't live in the dirt, it doesn't mean we're separate from nature. We've just evolved. And if we actually knew that, this fear that we're going in a bad direction, this fear of dislocation would poof away, because the truth would enlighten the darkness. And actually, it's interesting to think about how the main issue here is the fear that we are off track. That's the issue. The issue is that we think there's an issue. Ironically enough. That's a paradox, just like all of life. The issue is that we think there's an issue. There's actually no issue. That just makes me kind of giggle because it's so complicated and silly. But anyway. So again, this collective fear that we've strayed too far, that we're going in a wrong direction, that we're separate from nature, that we're dislocated, pulls us away from living in the state of trust and connectedness, and also reinforces a sense of isolation through our actions, right? Now we're so individualized. It's like, oh no, I'm Haley Snyder and you're you. We've kind of lost touch with this one with nature. One with nature also is awareness of unity and love between all beings, no matter if we're in different human suits. So we feel a little bit more isolated, and we take actions that only serve the fragmented parts. For instance, I take actions that only serve me. That's what an ego does. Sometimes I go out and I only think about what I need. And same with you watching this. You go out and only think about what you need. And this fragmentation is the issue. This illusion of serving the self is the issue. he talks then about how actions come out of trust. And I've actually referenced this in past videos, how you kind of expand the vessel with the light of God through taking actions that flex your trust. Doing something that scares you, knowing that it's an illusion, that you're actually allowed to do it, that it's actually okay. Example being when I was healing from an eating disorder. Okay, I'm gonna eat even though I'm kind of scared because, okay, secretly in my heart, I do know it's okay to eat. Even though like this industry and my agents have told me otherwise. And the only way to start to receive trust in God and feel one with nature is to start taking actions that are aligned with the truth, which is actually eating. I can talk all day about getting better and healing, but until I actually eat something, nothing's going to change. So something for you to contemplate watching this. Where in your life can you take actions to display your trust? Where can you charge your fear? Because you know with the prefrontal cortex of your mind that it's actually an illusion, you're actually fine, and you're actually allowed to trust what you know is the right thing to do. Where in your life can you take actions to display that trust and therefore download your body with certainty, trust, and the light of awareness? And when he says, when you take actions that are in trust, in alignment with reality, that are true, that are good for you, that are balanced, that are healthy, you create more energy for not only you, but also the whole. That's super cool. And then vice versa. If you take actions that are for your ego, out of fear, example being me not eating because I was too scared to disobey my agents, then I actually remove energy from myself, quite literally, and the whole. And that could be manifested as, okay, it's pretty obvious. I'm removing energy from myself if I'm not eating. I'm starting to get an ill body and mind. I'm removing energy from the whole by displaying a version of me that's inauthentic, promoting just unrealistic body images and beauty standards for all women that are seeing my content or the ads that I'm in. That's taking energy away from everyone. So this is really important, taking actions that come out of trust, that come out of love, that come out of balance, and that come out of truth. Because when you do that, you give energy to yourself. You build room in your body, in your vessel for trust, for light, for love. And you also get to give that to everyone you meet through all the actions you take from that point onward. That's pretty powerful. Actions that come from fear take from all. One final thought here before I wrap up. It says, in your personal life, if you allow it, the second shadow of dislocation will affect every decision you make, pulling you into an interference frequency. This means that you don't appear to be in synchronicity with life. You miss opportunities that would serve you and end up in repetitive patterns that can be very draining for all concerned. So important to note, he says it means you appear to not be in synchronicity. Once again, back to the beginning of this chapter, you're actually always on time. You're actually always on track. But when you live in alignment with the shadow, you misperceive reality. Therefore, you don't observe synchronicity. Therefore, you think and feel like you're off track, even though you're actually not. And you actually miss the opportunities that would serve you and help you evolve to new levels of love and greatness because you're stuck in these repetitive patterns, because you're stuck misperceiving reality. It's almost like you have glasses on that are dark. You literally can't see new opportunities, people, love coming at you. And you refuse to take your glasses off because you're scared. Because someone has told you that if you take your glasses off, you're gonna die, or whatever. If you take your glasses off, you're gonna become fat and no one's gonna love you and you're gonna lose your job, you're gonna become poor. My examples. And you need to take the glasses off. You need to trust that it's okay to take the glasses off. And it's like once you do, all these opportunities that were always there, you just couldn't see them because you're wearing your dark glasses, start to be right in front of you, and you're like, wow, look at this synchronicity, look at this person, look at this job that's coming to me. They were always there. They were just waiting for you to take your glasses off. So yes, I leave you with this. We're going to continue to talk about this shadow in the next video because there's still a page and a half to talk about, where we go over the repressive and reactive nature. But you can ask yourself this final question, which is, where in life am I still wearing my dark tinted glasses that I think look cool, but actually if I take them off, I know it will serve me. I know I'll be able to see and observe reality as it actually is, see the synchronicities that have always been there, and therefore live a more harmonious and happy life. I'll see you guys in the next video tomorrow to finish discussing the Shadow of Dislocation.